nutrition and health. Uh, we are not going to give it the medical or curative health aspect, but we are going to look at the preventive health aspect, and mostly we are going to look at what we can do something about. Now, today we have a verse to lead us in our studies. It's the third letter of John, the third letter of John, the first chapter, the second verse. Uh, it says like this. It says that, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. And so here John was writing to an elder named Gaius, and he was writing to him because he was a beloved elder to him in Christ. So spiritually they were already related, but he's talking about his physical health. And I would like to believe does not want us to just exist, to just live, to just trade our lives from day to day. It's just we are just surviving. God wants us to. His will is that we thrive. We enjoy being alive. We enjoy a long life, and not it's not enough to live a long life if that life is miserable. And He wants us to live a long and abundant life. John chapter 10 verse 10 also says that. Says the thief comes to kill and to destroy and everything, but he says, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. So God is interested in our overall well-being. And there are many things that affect our health. The first one is our genes. There's not much you can do about our genes. It's just at the toss of the coin. You find maybe you're told, oh, this race is more prone to these illnesses. There's not much you can do about that. We find the other factor that affects our health, but you do the best with what you've got. You don't say, oh, I'm so unfortunate. I was born in a race that is prone to diabetes, so that's my lot. No, you still try to do the best with what we have. But then we have the environment. Now look at the environment. We can say our environment is so polluted. Now maybe there's so much smoke in the air, so many chemicals. Now let's stop breathing. That is not possible. We can't say the temperatures are rising. There's climate change. Now let's find out how Mars is. Can we relocate? That is not possible. I sometimes I smile when I look at Elon Musk's obsession with what's going on in Mars. But that is not how God intends for us to deal with our issues here. So, how did God design for us to deal with our issues here? God designed the original diet, and we want to look at food this evening. He put everything together, and obviously, if we give our body what is best for it, what was designed for it, it's going to be healthy. On the other hand, we have an adversary, and this adversary and it's the devil. And the devil and God will never be partners in any enterprise. And that includes how our lives always want the opposite. He wants us to be unhealthy. And if you look at our world today, the devil has really succeeded in making us unhealthy. And so the devil doesn't come and do things physically that we can see, but he's able to influence human beings. So such that there's something we call human ambition. There's something that we call love of money. So you look at industries and you look at the kind of foods that they're putting together, it's the fact that that love for money, the quick money that comes from it, even if they know sometimes we talk of drugs and we say they are addictive, but there are also foods which are like addictive. Even if they know that this food is going to just capture you and make you a captive, and eventually even make you sick, they will not stop making that food if it's going to give, or that drink if it is going to give them money. So, whereas God wants us to go the natural way as much as possible, we also have the devil and he's also running another parallel industry to make us unhealthy. So, we're going to just look at a few things. Some of them are just basic biology, but we want to look at wanasema education is what remains after you have forgotten everything. So the biology that we were taught in high school or is what we are going to pick from and see how God would love us to live in this world. Um, God has given us food, and He made the food before He made us, and He made us with taste buds. He made us with palate such that we can enjoy that food. So God is not a children. A lot of people, when they hear anything about how God would love us to feed, they have got this mistaken idea that God is a killjoy. He would like us to just eat bland food, tasteless food. No, but is that really how it is? I don't think so. If that was how God was, we wouldn't be having all these different tastes in the food. We wouldn't be having all this variety in the food. He would have just made maybe one or he would have just made he wouldn't have bothered with such beautiful things, different colors of food, different textures, different tastes. Even when you chew, they're so different. He wouldn't have bothered with that. But he made all these things for us to enjoy. And food is going to be there, even in, it's been there, it's going to be there even in the earth maybe. So it was something that was really, really good for us. How did God intend for us to use the various foods? Our bodies have different needs and they are met by the different foods. Uh, and we are just going to mention a few things that are relevant. Right now, there's no biology exam we are going to see it. So what we are learning is for our practical lives today. We have foods called carbohydrates, and that is the pure fuel that God gave for our bodies. That means that God meant for us to live an active life, a life where you are not lethargic, where you don't wake up and then it's so difficult to get out of bed. And when God made the carbohydrates, He made them complex. Like it's not just sugar you eat and there goes. The only food that is the food that occur naturally, simple like honey, even the Bible says that you can only take a little. So how about now the rest of the carbohydrates? In the world today, we can get carbohydrates from so many foods, like the rice, the wheat, the maize, the rye, the oats, many others. We can, and these foods are meant to give us energy. Of course, we can prepare them in so many ways and have them so nutritious. But we have a fad going on in the world. Nowadays, when people want to lose weight, they are being told that if you don't take carbs, low carbs, low carbs. So we want to analyze: is this a fact? Is it low fat just because you ate carbohydrates? How then can we go about enjoying the carbohydrates that God created for us in the world? The best source of fuel for our body. And when they go into the body, now we're sharing the facts before we look at way forward. When carbohydrates go into the body, they are burnt up and the result is energy. Now, what are the end products of burning up, digesting the carbohydrates? It's water and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a gas, so it will get out. Water is a useful thing, and if you have taken enough and you're well hydrated, it's also very easy to get rid of excess water from the body. Now, so is it purely a lie that carbohydrates can be fattening? No, because carbohydrates can be stored in the body if we eat more than we need. We normally have how much we should eat or how much energy we need. And for every carbohydrate gram that goes into the body, it will give you, we have what we call calorie needs, and every carbohydrate, once digested, will give you around 4. So, At the end of the day, if you have taken more than you need, what will happen to the carbohydrates? Some of the carbohydrates will be stored as in the body as what we call adipose tissue, which is fat below the skin. Some will be stored in the muscles as glycogen. And that means that when there is need, on another day when you take less, then it can be retrieved and broken down again. That is why we put on weight and we reduce weight. But that is not to say that it is a crime. It's not a crime to put on a little weight or to lose a little weight, unless it only becomes a concern if you are obese and it's causing you other problems. But that is the best fuel that God made for us. So, how do we make sure that carbohydrates do not harm us and we are not living fearing to ingest them? The best way to take carbohydrates is to ingest them in the compound form, in the complex form, not in the simple sugars form. Uh, Simple sugars or how can I put it? Like there are different kinds of sugars, and when a food is already in the it's almost like needs very little digestion to get to release the sugars, a simple sugar. That is, it's already like glucose, so it goes to the body, direct to the tissues, and then it sends to the storage. That is a simple sugar. Now we have refined food coming from carbohydrate products that come from that. These foods are actually very, very dangerous because all grains have got three parts: the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. And when you take the refined, you are most probably just taking the endosperm. And this means that when we analyze this food, we say that it has a high glycemic index. What we say to me is immediately you take it, shortly after, your blood sugar is going to shoot. That means it is going to be a dangerous food, uh, especially if you have issues with sugar control, diabetes, it is going to be dangerous. And also, uh, it has very many other disadvantages when it is simple like that, other than the blood sugar shooting high, and then you have a surge, like a very high peak and then a very low drop. And when you have that very low drop, you become hypoglycemic. It is very difficult to operate, to concentrate, to have them in the complex form. Uh, then another thing that we need, which I think is very simple, in our diet, we need to be combining. The reason God made variety is so that we can be combining and make sure that you're not, first of all, don't take just the same carbohydrates day in, day out when there are so many. Number two, even the way you prepare it, make sure that it is, but it also has a function in our bodies. An old sage said that let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. Now, um, we have other foods called proteins. Uh, Now, proteins can come from animals, they can come from plants. The plant ones, they're like the beans, the peas, and others. While the animal ones are the meats, the milks, the eggs, all meats, fish, and everything. And today we are going to look at what that is for our bodies and how much exactly do we need. And does it have any fats going with it? Now, if you look at the foods I've just mentioned as examples, you see that those are the foods that we believe to be so good for us, especially if we have visitors coming over, if we are having a party, it's never complete unless we have some animal food, beef, uh, chicken, fish, and the likes. Now, when we analyze proteins to see how much we need, You will be shocked to find that we need very little to get by. Like for adults, we need either half a gram to 3/4 of a gram for every kg body weight. So you can imagine if you are weighing 100 kgs, which is rarely attainable, you're going to need like 75 grams, which is the size of an egg. So you can imagine how little of the proteins we need to get by so that we can have tissues in our bodies formed well, so that we can have things. Now is by looking at what we call the amino acid friends in the plant proteins, it's proteins because they have all the essential amino acids. The plant proteins are called incomplete because normally they don't have all the essential amino acids. Now, when we hear that, we might start wondering why then we promote a vegetarian or a vegan diet. Now, a plant, an animal, proteins we don't analyze in terms of that complete or incompleteness. The essential amino acids can't be made in the body, you must ingest them. The non-essential, the body can combine if it has some precursor ingredients. But now, what happens is that we have what we call absorbability. You can have them and they do not help you much. And that is the problem with our animal source amino acids. When they go into the body, sometimes they are not. And then the proteins have other issues. We have talked about how little we need. We when we look at other periods in life where you can need more, a small baby, the smallest baby, 0 to 6 months, needs like 1.8 grams per body weight kg, and that can be got from breast milk. Then after that, they need a little bit more than the rest, like 1.5. Then it comes to 1 by teenage. Then by adult, it's less than 1 gram per kg body weight. Now, a lactating mother will need like 17 grams more per day. And then, so if she needed 50, when she's lactating, she's going to need like 67. And a pregnant mother will need like 15 extra, so 65. So that is still very low. Now, what then will happen? Because nowadays the fad is for carbohydrates, we say the fad is you're going to grow fat if you eat the carbohydrates. Now, what about the proteins? People are saying eat more proteins and less carbohydrates so that you can lose weight, so that you can be healthy. But I want us to analyze, is this really the case? Is it true that if you don't eat enough, if you eat more proteins, you're going to be healthy? This is what happens when you take a lot of proteins into your body. For carbohydrates, we say what happens when you eat a lot, the body will stop. What happens when you eat a lot of proteins, more than these grams we have talked about? Imagine it's very rare to find a person who needs like 100 grams of protein in a day. Now compare that with how much we consume. Then, if you take more, what is going to happen? All proteins have one thing in common. They have an element called nitrogen. Okay? And nitrogen is um, it is what differentiates the protein from a carbohydrate. And what happens when you take more? Proteins cannot be stored. You don't take today's. If you can't say over the weekend I'm going to eat a kg of protein and then I stay the next 10 days without taking a protein. You need to take a little every day. So what is going to happen when you take excess? The body is going to be loaded because you have ingested a lot of stuff with protein is in a compound called an amine. So called the amine part of the protein. Once that part is removed, the remaining protein looks just like, or it is going to be treated. If you are not using enough carbohydrate, what happens to this amine which is removed? I've told you that the amine contains nitrogen. So what is nitrogen mixed with some other, the body has to do some extra work to convert it into first ammonia. Ammonia is a dangerous thing. Then it has to be removed from the body. It is actually a toxic thing. The next thing, it is going to be converted into urea. Then it is going to go to your kidneys, and then it is going to be excreted as urine. Now, what that means is that you have given the body extra work and you have used a less efficient fuel. And that is not all. If you had not taken enough water, uh, anyway, that is not very common, but it happens with reptiles. When they have ammonia in their bodies to excrete, they end up producing uric acid. Uric acid is not sodium. But now for human beings, if you end up didn't have enough water, you had taken other things that were dehydrating, that uric acid is actually presents itself as crystals. Now you can imagine crystals are like broken glass with very sharp edges, very sharp corners, and it breaks painfully. I don't know what comes from that process. And that is why people who consume a lot of nyama choma, they suffer from this terrible thing. It is very painful. You'll find a grown-up man crying like a baby and having to get an ambulance and being rushed to the hospital. It is because of consumption of excessive excessive animal proteins. And it's called we have this sometimes we think that the people who even say, how come there's no meat on our table today? When it will come skin, there's such a fad in our heads. Like if you're not eating meat, that's an impression. We are creating the impression that we are poor. That is not the thing. What we are doing when we are not eating too much meat is we are doing ourselves a favor. So for that reason, it is always advisable to go for the plant proteins. We say that they are incomplete, but normally, once you do a combination of the protein of carb, all the amino acids, that let us remember to be combining our foods. Now, at least those two are the main foodstuffs. And if you look at our time, we do not have enough time. But I wanted to talk about something called fiber, which is found in plant foods, and nothing of it is found in the animal foods. Fiber is something that helps us once it's in the body, we have two types. The one that is soluble that helps us to have our peristalsis and food moving and our bowel movement being very okay. And it is only found in plants. At the same time, we have what we call the insoluble. Then we have what we call soluble that helps us to have a slow release of any sugar in our body so that we don't have a surge. We don't have sugar shooting up and then shooting down. When we have, the best way to describe this soluble fiber is in an eaten dates. It's a way they have something that they feel gummy, they feel like gum. That is the kind of fiber that is soluble, and it is very useful in the way our blood sugar is controlled, going up and going down. Now, there are so many other things that we could talk about, but I know that our time is not going to allow us. But we have extremes nowadays in the world. We have people who are they're saying, like there are things that they can give you. Nowadays, people want quick fix for health problems, and some of them which just need a lifestyle change. We have people who are now selling supplements. People are selling some herbal products, and they're telling you, you take this one, all problems go. And because they need very little effort, you find that it's very easy to embrace. But that is not the case. The best thing is to just go by simple principles. We have foods which form alkalides in the body, we have foods which form acids in the body, and all the best way to go about our life is to eat the more alkaline foods. Actually, as we are digesting the extra proteins we are talking about, um, when anytime you take any food that forms acid in your body, that acid has to be neutralized. And if you have nothing that you have ingested that is going to help to neutralize that food, what is going to happen is that the body is going to draw from some reserves. The reserve of choice always is calcium. Calcium is deposited in our bones. So if you take any food like um, like the proteins, some proteins actually from the animal foods have got what we call uh, sulfur containing amino acids. So these sulfur containing amino acids, once they get into the body, that sulfur, if you remember the sulfur of chemistry that used to form sulfuric, can easily form in the body. Now, the body has to neutralize any acid that goes into the body has to be neutralized before it is excreted. And it is going to start eating into your bones. That is why sometimes you can find people who have taken milk for a long time in their lives, and yet the fact that milk maybe contains some calcium, it's going to be available when we ingest it in our meals. Now we have very many foods that are neutral. We have very many foods that form acids and very many foods that form alkalines. Just go for the alkaline forming foods. Most of them are vegetables. It's always better, even if you take um, the fruit of the season, it is always better to have even a preserved fruit than no fruit at all, even a preserved vegetable than no vegetable at all. Now, I know you are thinking that maybe there is a like our Adventist church when we are encouraging people to go vegetarian. Sometimes it is not taken very well. But I want to share with you and to submit to you that when Ellen White was writing most of the information in the book Ministry of Healing, it was very fashionable to ingest a lot of things which were very harmful. That time, people used to feel very proud if you had a pipe and you were smoking, and and there were some drinks that were considered for high class people, and even the figures of the day, things and saying they are filthy, when come to catch up, it, it is so many years down the line. And she has been proved true on occasion. He gives us secrets to live by. And when it comes to the sources of the foods, uh, um, as we are in the problem when it comes to the legumes, we've agreed that it's beans, dengu, and those kind of things. There's something called bloating. And a lot of people think that it is true, it is a fact of life that these legumes cause bloating. So I want us to discuss what to do so that we don't have a problem. Now, why do beans and those family, the legume family, cause bloating in human beings? When God created these plants, He made their seeds such that it can be kept for a long time without germinating. Beans don't behave like onions in the house. You can keep them for long, and when it is time to plant them, you just put them in the ground. If there is water, they absorb the water, then they start to germinate. That enzyme uh, that preventing that suppresses the germination also prevents digestion. The best way to deal with that enzyme is to soak them overnight or even soak them and pour the water. You can soak even more than once as long as they are producing that frothy stuff. It means they still need more soaking and pouring. People get the mistaken idea that you're pouring the nutrients out, or even when you boil them, don't use that water that you have boiled in them to make the soup. Don't say that if I throw it out, I'm throwing out nutrients. There is no nutrient you are losing. You are simply throwing out the water that has absorbed the, the enzymes that were the enzyme suppressors that were preventing it from germinating and would also prevent it from being digested easily. What happens if you don't throw that water out? And the beans are going to form gas and they are going to be like a nuclear weapon in your stomach. So you lose nothing by soaking and throwing. When we talk about the vegetables uh, and the and their cooking, now that is and there is no such a thing as you've cooked them for long. You know, there are greens which we cook for long, like saga kunde, we cook them for long. And then we say, now uh, let's throw that water. No, the minerals are not destroyed by heat, most of them. So throwing away that water, a lot of times you have thrown all the water soluble minerals, and that is emptying the best, you're throwing the best from that food. So what we do for legume family, soak, throw the water, even boil, throw the water. But for the vegetables are also, we have so many wonderful grains, the fruits and vegetables as well, but the way we combine them. For example, the time it takes to digest food determines what can be combined with what. A lot of times we have foods that are neutral, like all the legumes, all the grains, all the nuts, all the seeds. Consider that foods that take medium time to digest. Then we have foods that take a long time to digest and foods that take a short time to digest. By all means, we should avoid combining vegetables and fruits in the same meal. But we can combine vegetables with all the legumes, all the nuts, all the grains. We can also combine them with the fruits. Only a few are able to go well with everything, like avocado, tomatoes, watermelon, they can go well with everything, cabbage. The rest will be selective. So that if we are having vegetables, then we have the others in the middle, the neutral ones in terms of time wise. Or if we're having fruits, then we have the, the ones in the middle, but not a question of combining vegetables um, and fruits. Finally, uh, it's good to have variety in the choice. It's good to invest in equipment for in the kitchen that make cooking easy. And it's good also to be disciplined in terms of how we eat. The spirit of prophecy, Ministry of Healing says, not a morsel in between. Like, give the stomach 5 hours at least from one meal to the next. The problem that sometimes we have, and which can also affect even our weight and everything, is when we see we are like eating one meal that is lasting the whole day. You have breakfast, but you're eating in between. Then it's lunch, and then you're eating in between. Then it's supper. Let's try to be disciplined and have time restricted eating. And another thing, it's good not to eat and then immediately go idle. It's good once you've eaten, move up and down and engage in something useful. It's something physical, a physical activity. Uh, what can I say now that I know I can see time has gone very fast? That there's so much that we could cover, but we can be learning a little bit of this every time. This is what I would like to say. But do not get this attitude where, based on how you eat, you are very we need to be very careful, especially those who are thinking of embracing the vegan vegetarian lifestyle, not to develop a holier than thou attitude, where you are always judging your neighbor based on what is on their plate. Please let us refrain from that kind of reasoning. Number two, don't make a religion out of your diet because this is terrible. We can misrepresent God by putting religion ahead of God. I mean, food ahead of everything. So we need to be healthy, but we also need to enjoy being healthy. There are some people, they will not touch a piece of meat if that is the last thing left to save their life. But they will be they can give you more serious problems, and they can cause a lot of trouble and sins where they are. So it is not enough that you are vegetarian if by being vegetarian you are also sometimes just very miserable and just making life difficult for those around you and boasting about how you don't eat meat and how and being very judgmental and critical of others and throwing snide remarks at people about what they are eating. We need to be very, very careful. So um, let us not are people who you can witness negatively. You are a vegetarian, but you're just a bomb waiting to explode. That is not how God meant it to be. God meant it for us to enjoy our food, to enjoy good health, and to be a pleasant people to be with, so that those people who are around us, they feel like we are witnessing that for them even before we pull out our Bibles. Okay? So, with that in mind, I pray that we will look at food as something that God gave us to enjoy, something that God gave us to help us to live long, to help us to live healthy. But more than that, we witness of God. Then people will be attracted. Somebody can even be interested in your food after seeing a pleasant person. So I pray that our witnessing, even through the way we eat, will be something that people admire.